Good day, learners. Today is our second video discussion. But our subject is 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. I am again Teacher Raj, welcoming you to the second video discussion. I am happy to serve and to teach you. Too much for introduction, learners, so let us now start. The first thing is I will introduce to you our learning competencies or our objectives. These are, number 1, to identify representative texts and authors from Asia, North America, Europe, Latin America, and Africa. Second is to compare and to contrast the various 21st century literary genres and their elements, structures, and traditions from across the globe. Third is to do a self or peer assessment of the creative adaptation of a literary text based on rationalized criteria prior to presentation. So these are our learning competencies or objectives for this lesson. Okay, so from our learning competencies class, actually our topic will be all about this one. So the first is some of the authors or the literary pieces from the authors are actually, the concepts are taken from here. So the first thing is religion, politics, wonderful places, culture and traditions, and of course the experiences of the authors. And our topic actually will focus on the North American literature. So all the texts and the authors, all the discussions will be all about the literatures from North America. So again, from our three objectives, our focus is on the literary pieces and authors from North America. To proceed, I want you to get your study notebook and your ball pens so that you will answer this pre-assessment or an assessment that will test how far is your prior knowledge will help you in answering this one. So the objective is to answer each item below. Then after answering, we will check right away because I will reveal the answer. Then write only the letter on your literature activity notebook or your study notebook in literature. So let's start for number 1. The part of the story that reveals the solution and takes care of the conflict. A, the theme. B, the climax. C, the resolution. D, the introduction. Okay, the answer is C. It's the resolution. Number 2. The story's time and place is A, voice. B, tone. C, plot. D, setting. The answer is T. It's setting. Number 3, the message that the author wants to get across is the A, plot. B, tone. C, theme. D, setting. Alright, so the correct answer is C. Number 4, which part of the plot creates tension and suspense? A, climax. B, rising action. C, falling action. D, resolution. Okay, guess the answer? It's letter B. It's rising action. Number 5. Which part of the plot is the most intense? A, climax. B, exposition. C, falling action. D, resolution. Okay, the answer is it's A. It's climax. Okay, so we are done with the assessment. I hope everybody get the 5 correct answers from our pre-assessments. Anyway, this is just an assessment again to test what you learned before in your junior years. So let us now continue with our discussion. This is now the proper discussions all about North American authors and writers. So let's start with earlier American period. The authors during this period are Captain John Smith, who wrote A Time of Virginia, which it discusses the advantages of colonial rule to both the colonists and the colonist audiences. So one of the author is Captain John Smith, who wrote A Time of Virginia. Another authors are Samuel Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Paine. They are the ones who are hailed for its wit and its contribution to building the nation that is today. So, actually, these three writers or authors, uh, their writings are still used in 21st literature, the present times. So, they are great contributors when it comes to literary discussions and literary pieces. Authors are Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, who are great influencers to their very constitution. We also have Washington Irving, who wrote Salmagundi, Dietrich Knickerbocker, who wrote A History of New York, Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. Another is Nathaniel Hawthorne, who wrote The Scarlet Letter, and Edgar Allan Poe, who is the father of short stories and the ones who wrote The Raven and the Cask of Amontillado. So all of these are the authors still who belong to the earlier American period. Next, let's go to the 19th century authors. We have Mark Twain, Henry James, who created characters who speak real people and sound distinctly American with accents native to their region. So these are 19th century authors who are very popular in writing short literary pieces which uses their native language. Next, the 20th century are Edward Bellamy, Upton Sinclair, Henry Adams, who are writers and are able to discuss political and educational issues. So their literary pieces involves or includes politics and education. Another one is F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby, which shows how the dreams and ambitions of the youth may quickly disappear and ultimately leads to disappointment. So, if you have imagined class, all their contents in the 20th century will really fit into the new generations, the millennials, because their contents gives morals to the new generation in which we belong. American literature at the turn of the 21st century has become democratic and heterogeneous. Regionalism has flowered, and international or global writers refract U.S. culture through foreign perspectives. Creative nonfiction and memoir have flourished. In the 21st century, we see in some movies, especially in Hollywoods, that most of their films are actually coming from the books written from these popular authors in the 21st century, and super we're enjoying it, seeing through films rather than reading. But actually, films also have books which are good for reading. So in the 21st century class, one of the popular author is Suzanne Collins, who wrote Gregor the Underland Chronicles and of course The Hunger Games, which is very popular this present. Collins recalled that the Hunger Games trilogy was born while she was watching television. Late one night, flipping through the channels, Collins was suddenly struck by the lack of distinction between reality TV and coverage of the Iraq War. For Collins, the Hunger Games and her other books touch on the very subjects, necessary and unnecessary wars, that her own father often discussed with her. So, Susan Collins class in the 21st century, which is the very popular film produced, is The Hunger Games, wrote a book about the Hunger Games because she was so particular with the idea that there should be a film that should be produced which is near to reality. And of course, the experiences of her father will also help her in producing or making the Hunger Games, both in book and in movie. So, speaking of Collins and her Hunger Games book I have a short film for you, a recap of the movie The Hunger Games. But if you want to have the full movie, you can search it in YouTube and just type The Hunger Games. There, you can see the full version of this movie. So I'll let you play this 4-minute recap of The Hunger Games. So take a look for this because after this one, there is an activity for you.
The nation of Panem is divided into 12 districts, ruled from the capital. As punishment for a failed revolt, each district is forced to select 2 tributes, one boy and one girl, between the ages of 12 and 18, to fight to the death in the annual Hunger Games, until there is only one survivor. After her 12-year-old sister Primrose is chosen for the 74th Hunger Games, 16-year-old Katniss Everdeen of District 12 volunteers to take her place. She and fellow tribute Peeta Mellark are escorted to the capital by their chaperone, Effie Trinket, and mentor, Haymitch Abernathy, the game's only living winner from District 12. Haymitch stresses the importance of gaining sponsors as they can provide potentially life-saving gifts during the games. While training, Katniss observes the other tributes, including volunteers from the wealthy Districts 1 and 2, also known as the Careers, who have trained for the games from an early age. During a televised interview with Caesar Flickerman, Peeta expresses his love for Katniss, which she initially sees as an attempt to attract sponsors. She later learns his admission is genuine. At the start of the games, Katniss ignores Haymitch's advice and grabs some of the supplies placed around the cornucopia, a structure at the starting point, and narrowly escapes death. Half of the 24 tributes die in the initial melee, and only 11, including those from Districts 1 and 2, survive the first day. Katniss tries to stay away from the others, but Seneca Crane, the head game maker, triggers a forest fire to drive her towards them. She runs into the Careers, with whom Peeta has seemingly allied, and flees up a tree. Peeta advises the Careers to wait her out. The next morning, Katniss notices Rue, District 11's young female tribute, hiding in an adjacent tree. Rue draws attention to a nest of tracker jackers, genetically modified poisonous wasps. Using a knife, Katniss saws off the branch holding the nest, causing it to fall on the Careers sleeping below. One of them, named Glimmer, dies, but the others escape. Katniss becomes disoriented from being stung a few times. Peeta returns and tells her to flee. Rue helps Katniss recover, and they become friends and allies. Katniss destroys the supplies the Careers stockpiled by detonating mines guarding them, while Rue provides a distraction. Katniss later finds and frees Rue from a trap, but one of the Careers, named Marvel, throws a spear at Katniss, which impales Rue. Katniss kills him with an arrow. She comforts Rue, and after she dies, covers her body with flowers. This triggers a riot in District 11. President Coriolanus Snow warns Crane about the unrest. Haymitch persuades Crane to change the rules to allow 2 winners, provided they are from the same district, suggesting that this will pacify the public. After the announcement, Katniss finds a gravely wounded Peeta. Another announcement promises that what each survivor needs the most will be provided at the cornucopia the next morning. Despite Peeta's opposition, Katniss leaves to get medicine for him, but she is ambushed and overpowered by another one of the Careers, named Clove, who gloats about Rue's death and prepares to kill her. District 11's male tribute Thresh overhears and kills Clove. He spares Katniss once because of her relationship with Rue. The medicine heals Peeta overnight. While hunting for food, Katniss hears a cannon go off, signaling a death. She races to Peeta, who has unwittingly collected deadly Nightlock berries. They discover Foxface, District 5's female tribute, dead from eating what she assumed were edible berries from watching Peeta. Crane then unleashes genetically modified beasts, which kill Thresh and force Katniss, Peeta, and the final Career Cato, all of whom are the last 3 survivors, onto the cornucopia's roof. Cato gets Peeta in a headlock and uses him as a human shield against Katniss's bow. Peeta directs Katniss to shoot Cato's hand, enabling Peeta to throw him to the beasts below. Katniss kills him with an arrow to end his suffering. Crane then revokes the rule change, allowing 2 victors to win. Peeta urges Katniss to shoot him, but she convinces him to eat Nightlock together. Just before they do, Crane hastily declares them co-victors. Afterward, Haymitch warns Katniss that she has made enemies through these acts of defiance. President Snow has Crane locked in a room with Nightlock berries, after which the wily president considers his next move.
after this discussion, you're gonna be making an activity about the plot twist of that movie. So speaking of plot, what is plot? Plot is referred to the series of events that occur in the story. The plot is the underlying pattern of the story that gives its unity and order. In traditional narrative, the plot can be broken down into the following elements. So, plot are the events in a story. This is sort of summary of what is the full version of that particular story you watch, or film you watch, or the story you read. So that is plot. So there are some elements of plot. The first one is exposition. This is the introduction of the characters and the situation. So you can see in the 4-minute plot twist of the Hunger Games that the characters are being introduced, so that is exposition. Number 2 is the inciting incident. The main conflict is introduced. You can also see there and hear it from the one who narrate the story, that what is the inciting incident. So go there. Next, we have rising action, the chain of events that build from the conflict. So after knowing what is the conflict, there are some events which shows that that particular conflict is really existing in that particular movie. So that is the rising action. Another element of plot is climax, the moment of crisis in which the outcome will be determined. So this is now how the climax is, that how the character struggled a lot. This is the part of the plot wherein it is shown in the movie or in the film how the characters have worked hard to overcome the struggle. Next, the falling action. This time, from the struggles of the main character is, of course, knowing what problem, what is the solution of the problem. So that is falling action. Then with the resolution, the main conflict is answered. So when we see resolution, the problem has been solved. And denouement is the outcome or the conclusion or the unraveling or the untangling of the conflict. So denouement is after solving, what happened next. So that is the denouement. That is the conclusion or the end point of the story. So those are the elements of the plot, from number 1, which is the exposition, number 2, the inciting incident, number 3, the rising action, 4, climax, 5, falling action, 6, resolution, to 7, denouement. Let us now proceed to themes. So what is themes? These are referred to the general point that the story attempts to make. The theme is not merely limited to the fictional reality of the characters' lives, but often comments upon the reality of our own existence as well. The theme is described as the significant truth about life and human nature, reflected in actions, preoccupations, and decisions of the character. When we say themes, what we can get out from the movie or the film we watch, or the book or the story of the book that we read. So this is not all about what only we can get, but how we live with the lesson or the moral we can get out from this story or film we watch. I mean, it reflects the reality of our experiences. So that is the theme. The thing that we can get in order for us to learn more out from the lessons we get in that particular piece of literary. Next, we have setting. Setting refers to the time and location in which the story takes place. These two elements together create the entire social and environmental context of the story. So, setting is when and where the story happens. So, it is reflected in the plot twist of the Hunger Games, kung where the story and when the story happens, when and where the conflicts happens, when and where it has been solved, and how the characters deal with the environment or the surroundings in the film. So those are setting. So let us now go to our quiz for this discussion. Let me check if you learned something from it. To state, the direction is to write the letter of the correct answer. So You have to write only the letter of the correct answer right after answering the 5 items. You keep your study notebook because I will be collecting that one during the retrieval and distribution of the modules for the next week, for the coming week. Then, I will be the one who will check your assessment as well as your quiz as well as your assignment. Okay, so for number 1, let us start. The struggle or problem in a story is called A. Exposition, B. Conflict, C. Resolution, D. Rising action. Number 2, the main conflict is introduced. A. Inciting incident, B. Denouement, C. Antagonist, D. Villain. 3. The central idea or lesson to be learned in a story is called A. Plot, B. Tone, C. Theme, D. Setting. 4. Which part of the plot creates tension and suspense? A. Climax, B. Rising action, C. Falling action, D. Resolution. 5. Which part of the plot is the most intense? A. Climax, B. Exposition, C. Falling action, D. Resolution. So again, let me show you. That is for number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, and 5. Okay, for your assignment is you have to write the plot twist of Hunger Games. Identify the elements of the plot in your written plot. So you have there the exposition, know what is the where is the exposition in the Hunger Games twist, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and denouement. So these are our references. And thank you for listening, everyone. So God bless you and keep safe.